particularly family members would encourage men to voice their feeling of their masculinity being attacked so that they men don't necessarily resort to these sort of negative behaviors?
Absolutely. That's a very significant question. One of the avenues that we often take to remedy situations when it comes on to men in relationships, relationships galore, that is to criticize, and is to criticize to bring remedy. I would want to suggest to use praise to bring the remedy. What do I mean? Take for an example. Take for example, um, there's a situation, man and woman, the husband is going to the gym. The husband is overweight. The wife say, Johnny, let me use another name. Paul, you need to see your belly big. You can't guard it. You can't guard it. The gym. You work off the big belly. It could very well mean that she says, Paul, oh my gosh, I love when your shoulders are so broad and your hands are so strong. Oh my Lord, Paul, if you just go to the gym a little bit more often, can you imagine how it made me feel? Now, you are the remedy is that you want the Paul to go to the gym, but the approach is to praise to get to the remedy. And I think that's very simple thought is a very significant avenue that people, the principle is a significant avenue that people can take to get remedy. So its situation is, I know that you're working hard, Johnny. I know that you want to provide. And I know that you have so much more potential in you. Whenever you come home with XYZ, it makes me and the children feel so good. So how can you, versus criticizing and going the other routes?
Definitely. Thank you for that response, Mr. Danvers. At this time, we'd like to take 2 questions from the audience. So if you'd wish to pose a question to Mr. Danvers, you can type your question in the chat or you can indicate using the raise hand feature. I'm not seeing any raised hands right now. I'm sure it's because Andrew Johnson raised their hand. Let me see if I can.
It appears that I was very clear.
It does seem so.
I enjoyed my time with you, and I will try to jump in on the others. Regrettably, I'll have to depart for another commitment. But
very short. Just one moment. We'd like to see if Mr. Johnson can. I'm requesting that he unmute so that he can pose his question to you. But I'm not seeing that he is.
Yes. I have the opportunity to unmute. So
good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Johnson.
Okay, this is Mr. Andrew Johnson, the chairman of the National Youth Council. And Mr. Danvers, I just want to, just to share some perspective to the platform, especially in terms of your representation, especially, you being able to interact with young men, of society who are using some of these norms, some of these cultured approach of how people treat men. You kind of share the platform as to what is your interaction in the communities at the community level leadership, where persons will have bring forth some of these problems that they think we need to be fixed for us to better appreciate men or to uplift the whole idea of men being a pivotal part of society going forward.
I don't think I catch that.
I think Mr. Johnson is asking. Go ahead. You can restate your question, Mr. Johnson.
Yes, so I'm just saying that, especially at the community-based level, where, in terms of leadership, we would have, getting an opportunity to interact with, especially young men, right? And they would have shared their problems and different issues that they face being a man in society. So just wanted to share the platform as some of these challenges and, what you think we can do to remedy that going forward.
Well, there are significant amounts that which we couldn't have the time to to table all of those. But some of the opportunities, some of the disadvantages that come up are the inability of society to embrace the limitations that are real, that are true, like the psychosocial deficiencies of lack of opportunities, the equity where opportunities are shared, and also um, how it is that these opportunities can quote unquote be begotten are some real realities that I come across. How I've remedied them, well, through work through the National Youth Council, of which Sir Johnson, you are familiar. We have provided a lot of opportunities for not only recognition, but also promotion of job seeking opportunities, promotion of bringing interventions to those same persons that are disadvantaged and are perhaps not necessarily having those opportunities at their fingertips. That's the succinctness that I would have to share.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Danvers.
Thank you.
I can take one more question from Mr. Cunningham because I said we'd ask two
Reg-
questions from the floor. So I'll ask him to keep it brief so that you can
re-
go as quick as possible.
regrettably, I'm not going to be able to feel a response
Okay.
as we speak, but
All
but
right.
I'm
Thank you
do
very
forgive
much
me.
for your time. No problem. Thank you very much
Certainly.
for your time, Mr. Danvers, and enjoy the rest of your International Men's
You
Day.
too. Thank you, everyone.
So we will now be moving on to our second speaker, Mr. Davian Vassell, attorney at law. Mr. Vassell,
Good
are
evening.
you ready to take over?
Yes, I'm ready to take over.
All right, you can
Good
go
evening, a
right
special
ahead.
good evening to everybody, and happy International Men's Day to all the men. Men have been ostracized and marginalized in many areas and facets of life. I was in court today, and when I was looking around, the judge and the prosecutors were all females. Gone were the time when it was a male-dominated space. But it's not a case where we're saying that males should dominate everything. The point has reached now where we believe some equity is necessary, to ensure that there's a balance. In the past, there was this great advocacy for females to be included. And their inclusion, we laud that because that is important as it relates to the balance that I'm speaking about. But also, as the times have progressed, men have regressed in terms of their positions of authority and their positions within the space of leaderships. And we're saying that the time has now come for us to take a look at that to see if we can assist the men to take up their roles in society. Look across the length and breadth of Jamaica, and we'll see that men are in short supply in many areas. Right, the only area that I see is really dominated by men, and it's because of brute strength and our ability to carry loads. It's the construction industry. And outside of that, women have taken over all other facets of life. But with that being said, it is my task to speak about maintenance. All right. So I'm speaking specifically about maintenance of a child and maintenance of spouse. Now, I will start with the spouse. Spouse, um, as defined by the Maintenance Act, is a single woman living with a single man for a period not less than 5 years, as if he is in law her husband and vice versa. So it requires that this person is either you're married, if you're married to the person becomes your spouse, or if the person lives with you, cohabits with you for a period not less than 5 years, and that person is single and you are single. That's how you establish who is a spouse under the Maintenance Act. Now, each party, each spouse, um, is required to maintain the other spouse where it is necessary, where the spouse is incapable of meeting his or her needs as they may arise. Now, you may ask, why is it important for me to maintain this other person? Um, the law is saying if the person that you were once with had a standard or quality of life that this person can no longer afford as a result of lack of financial capabilities, then it is the requirement of law that the spouse who is in a better financial position assist that spouse. And it takes into consideration a number of factors, such as the spouse's ability to earn, whether the spouse has dependents that the spouse is unable to take care of, the legal obligations of that person. A number of facets are looked into. And of course, the spouse that is expected to do the maintenance aspect, their quality of life must also be taken into consideration in maintaining this person. How is this person who is doing the maintenance able to take care of their other roles and responsibilities? For example, a man may be asked to maintain his wife, and they're no longer together, and she's requesting that he maintains her. However, the court will have to look as it relates to his dependence, his responsibilities, right, and how maintaining her will impact his ability to take care of his other obligations. So these things are things that the court consider. However, if the parties no longer live together, the court is saying that you have up to a year in order to make this application for maintenance once separation takes place. What must be noted though is that if the spouse who is making the application for maintenance marries somebody, then there's no obligation on the part of the spouse that was doing the maintaining to continue to maintain that person. Or if she goes on and lives with a man, another person, the obligation ends. So if she cohabits, or he cohabits with somebody, or marries, it obligation to maintain comes to an end. So in other places, they probably call it alimony. But we just call it spousal maintenance under the Maintenance Act here in Jamaica. And the thing about it is, what we have realized and what I've seen in my practice as an attorney is that the maintenance aspect of it, the spousal part of it, mostly women make the application for maintenance, but men too can make the application under the act for maintenance should the court see a need or the need arises for maintenance of that person. But because, I don't know why it is that men believe that they will not get this order if they apply, because really and truly it is subject to the spouse's ability to assist in the maintenance. For example, if a man is with a woman that is out earning him, outperforming him, they are together, and as a result of them being together, he has now been accustomed to a particular quality of life, right? He used to shop at Price Mart and go and push his trolley, and he goes to Mega Mart whenever he needs some groceries. And now they're separated, and he has to now go downtown to buy from a Chinaman at supermarket. I'm not saying anything is wrong with shopping downtown, but I'm saying it's quality of life as he's been accustomed to as a result of being in this relationship afforded him an ability to do certain things. Now he's no longer in that space because the relationship has ended. He too can show the court, listen, I have a wife that is capable, because that the capability of the person to maintain you is a key consideration. Right? It's capable of maintaining me as a result of us not being together. I'm no longer able to take care of myself and to, afford certain amenities that I once was able to do. The court may also order that, notwithstanding him being a man. It's not a gender-based thing, it's a capability thing. But as I said before, if either party, so if I'm married to a female that I'm maintaining, right, and we separate and she goes on and remarries, the obligation for me to maintain her ends. She goes and live with another man, the obligation for me to maintain her ends. So that is the spousal aspect of it. So as I said, spouse doesn't mean that you have to be married legally. Being married legally gives you that spousal right automatically. However, as I said, if you're in a relationship, if a man is in a relationship with a single woman for a period of 5 years or more, and he cohabits with her as if she was in law his wife, that creates a spousal obligation. And vice versa. If a single woman lives with a single man for a period of 5 years or more, or not less than 5 years, whichever way, as if he was in law her husband, that creates a spousal obligation. So that's spouse. As well as the child maintenance now, there is a duty of parents and grandparents, where necessary, to maintain a child. And the parents is not just your biological parent, because you can become a parent to a number of other means outside of birth. Now, if the man's name appears on the child's birth certificate outside of a DNA test, the fact that his name is on the birth certificate, that is enough for the court to make an order for him to maintain a child. If he adopts that child, he is responsible for that child. It goes without saying. If he's in a relationship with the mother, single woman, and he lives with her for a period not less than 5 years, as if she was in law his wife, and in that union there are children that he used to take care of as part of that union under the common law situation. If it becomes necessary, the court can order that he maintains the child as well. Of course, the main situation would be if the biological father is capable of maintaining the child. Now, as it relates to maintenance, mothers are required to maintain their children as well. So if the child is living with the father, the court can make an order that the mother pays maintenance to the father. So again, it's not a gender-based situation where, okay, the mother alone gets the maintenance money. No, if the father has primary care and control, custody and control of the child, then the obligation is that the mother will assist with the maintenance of that child. A number of factors are taken into consideration: the child's education, the child's aptitude for education, the child's health, because health is also a consideration for maintenance. So the court would make an order to say that X person should pay such amount in child support monthly, and they would say, depending on the circumstances, if the parties are equal in terms of their income, to say that education expenses and healthcare expenses are shared. Now, the reason why that is done is that you realize that for the daily upkeep of a child, it is completely different from the educational responsibilities and demands, because a child needs to eat a day a meal, well, meals daily. But also, if you're taking into consideration the educational aspect, a child needs to go to school. And if the child is being sent to school, depending on the proximity of the school to the child's house, the child may need to get transportation to and from school, right? We're talking about lunch money as well as a part of that. We're talking about books. We're talking about uniform, bags. These things are also considerations, but they're not generally a week to week or month to month consideration. It's normally within that period of time, like back to school. And of course, we cannot legislate for when a child gets ill. So, under the Maintenance Act, usually it is a case where um, both parties would contribute towards the maintenance. Now, I've seen circumstances in my area of practice, because I do a lot of family law, where if the husband or the wife is in a very good position in terms of job, and say for instance, you may have uh, a husband or a father. Let's not say husbands and close the shop completely, because a father who's not married is also required to maintain a child, and vice versa, a mother who's not married, depending on their financial capabilities, have to maintain this child. Now, the question is, how much do you pay? The amount that you pay, of course, depends on your income. So the point I was going to make earlier is, if one of the parties has a very good job, and with job, some jobs come with certain perks, like you get a health card, and with that health card comes certain benefits, optical, and other benefits. That person, the court couldn't make an order that that person takes care of the child's medical needs, as opposed to splitting it 50-50. Yeah, so it depends. So, what is the main consideration is the well being of the child. So, that is paramount above all else. So, we have seen situations where we have men who are not maintaining their children, and the court makes an order. If you do not adhere to these orders, you can be incarcerated for disobedience of maintenance. So it is very serious, because it carries with it a penal element, because you can be committed to prison if you fail to pay maintenance. And it's not just man or men. It can be applied to women as well. If the court makes an order in favor of the man to say that the woman should pay maintenance towards a child that is residing with the man, failure to adhere to those orders made by the court may very well result in the person who disobeys the court order being locked up for a period of time until that order is complied with. So the issue of maintenance is a very serious one. But what the importance of it is that children who are innocent in all of this are capable of being properly educated, being properly cared for in terms of their meals and their sustenance, and that is irrespective of the parties being able to get along. Because while it is that the parties are probably not agreeing at the moment, during the time of the conception of the child, this innocent being was being created, the parties were clearly in agreement to do something, maybe not to bring about a child, but to bring about some excitement or some fun or some merriment. So when this innocent being is brought into the picture, there is no one obligation in law under the Maintenance Act to maintain this little person until this person becomes 18. And then I must state that the maintenance of the child goes up to the age of 18. However, should that child opt to pursue further education, say, for example, the child gets into a university, the maintenance can be extended up until age 23. Many people do not know this. It goes up to 23 if the child takes on educational, further educational development. Now, what is important to note, and this is a matter that was adjudicated on by the Court of Appeal, is that if there's an existing maintenance order up until 18, if the child decides that he or she is going to pursue further education, the application to maintain up until 23 must be made before the expiration of the 18th birthday. So let me repeat that. So a maintenance order is in place for a father to maintain or a mother to maintain a child up until 18, which is when you become legally responsible for yourself. If that person, that child, decides that they're going to pursue higher education, be it a university, a community college, or wherever, once you're past the age of 18, you can be maintained up until the age of 23. However, that application to extend to age 23 must be made before the child turns 18. Now, why maintenance? Maintenance, as I said, is important to ensure that the child's quality of life continues to be meaningful. Because ultimately, it's not a case where it is a child's responsibility to find out or to contemplate where his or her next meal is coming from. And parents seem to forget about that. The court wants children to be children. Focus on, playing with little Timmy next door. Focus on, what toys you want for Christmas, not what am I going to eat, how am I going to survive this week. It's not their responsibility to be contemplating these things at that age. So, here ends my presentation on maintenance, spousal and child maintenance. I am open for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vasco. Well, I am seeing one raised hand in the chat, so there is two. So Mr. Cunningham was first. I'm going to ask him to pose his question to Mr. Vasco. I requested that you unmute Mr. Cunningham. You can.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good
Um,
evening.
I'm Samuel Kondam, the youth member of parliament for Southeast Saint Anne, and the vice president to be for Saint Anne Youth Council. My question to you, sir. You said that the child needs to apply. I'm trying to get it clear. Is it that the child needs to apply for an extension for
The
maintenance
parents,
before?
the parent that has custody and control of the child will have to apply before the 18th birthday of that child. So it's not the child that applies, it's the parent that has custody of the
So
child.
the parent applies for the extension.
Yes,
So what
to
if
the
that?
court.
So the parent can decide that he or she doesn't want this child to get the extension then.
Well, the child cannot really take the matter to court, is on
Yeah,
herself.
because I mean I think this should have been something that assists a child to ensure that he or she is given the opportunity to further education, being that that is the reason for it. So a parent could simply decide that, oh well, I'm not going to send him. So he doesn't know about it, I know about it. He can't apply, and I'm not going to apply. You understand? So I think this is just my stupidity. I think that it should have been a way where the child can apply for this before the age of 18. And if the parent doesn't apply for whatever reason, the child should be given that opportunity to do it once he is of that age that he realizes now that, hey, I want to do this and I can't do it because I don't have the resources to do so, and I cannot now apply for the extension. You understand?
I understand it's a very valid point, and you said in your stupidity, but there's no stupidity. It's a very valid
No,
point
no,
right
man,
here.
that is just my thing. That is just my thing.
Yeah, really and truly, I'm not. I've not seen a situation, but I don't think there's anything that precludes a child from having standing to make an application to extend the order if the child is the subject of the application.
Yes,
But
because I mean, the
usually, it's an adult that has to drive this process.
yeah,
If
but
you understand.
realistically speaking, though, I think this is a part of it because I mean, if the parent wanted to do send the child to college, the parent wouldn't necessarily need to apply because it would have already been a part of his or her plan to do this for the child. But I'm thinking, okay, when I heard this initially, I'm thinking, okay, this is good because a lot of parents, oh, once you turn 18, they send you out and on your own and all of that. So I'm thinking, okay, the child now, or well, there's not a child anymore because he or she is now 18, but the young adult now can decide that, hey, I want to pursue further education and I'm going about it this way because the parent has some amount of obligation still to me to ensure that I'm completed college by age 23. If after that now I'm on my own, but before I can, make this move.
Bearing in mind, it's not an obligation the parent has to pay all of this money.
Yes.
You understand? But they have, as far as they're capable of doing.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a matter of capability again, because you cannot ask a man who is earning say for example, $15,000 a fortnight to pay you a school fee for law of $10,000 per year. You understand? So it is also a matter of capability that you have to take into consideration. Fair?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yes.
But my point still stands still. I believe that the child should be able to
I
apply.
agree with you. I agree with
Yeah.
you. But I'm in my head, I'm trying to see if I've ever seen a situation, and I'm at pains to tell you that I've seen it where a child has initiated the application to extend the
You know, just
maintenance beyond a
maybe,
certain point.
just maybe the reason why we haven't seen it as yet is because maybe they are not yet educated to the fact that this is something that they can do. They maybe just hear about it and the persons who. So for myself, for example, I'm probably not able to do it. And if I even thought I was able to do it, I'm now learning that it would have to be that it would have had to be done before the age of 18 by the parent.
What if
So
I tell you? What if I tell you that I was in a matter where a child got into university and the court ordered a continuation of the maintenance. The father noted that the application for the maintenance was made a few days after the child attained the age of 18. And the man brought the matter to the Court of Appeal. Instead of taking the money that he would be spending paying lawyers to take the matter to the Court of Appeal and assist the child in paying her tuition, he rather would have preferred to pay a lawyer to go to the Court of Appeal to overturn that decision for him to pay maintenance
yeah,
for the child up to age 23. But it depends again on the relationships that father and children and mother and children have.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for your response to that question, Mr. Vassell. We have another question from Miss Eileen Davis. Miss Davis, could you, I'm requesting that you're unmute so that you can go ahead with your question.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good
Good
evening, Mr.
evening.
Davis.
My question is, okay, let's say I am a mother and the father of my children were not honoring their obligation in terms of maintaining the children or the child. I took the father to court. The court made an order that the father is to pay $5, for example, per week to the child or per child. However, the father did not honor what the court says.
Yes.
And he, instead of honoring what the court says, he migrated to another parish. And to date, or after an amount of years, still did not honor the obligation of the court. Okay, so here now the child becomes 18. So the child is now an adult, or the children, the youngest is now 18. So whatever other one before that, they pass 18. So they are all adults. The fact that the father did not honor the court's order by paying the maintenance money all these years during the upbringing of the child or the children, and they have now passed 18, what can be done in a situation like that?
I'm surprised that you waited until the children became adults before embarking on this, but there's nothing preventing you from going to the court and make an application for disobedience of maintenance. Even though the children are now adults, the order would have been made from the children were minors, and therefore the obligation would have been the obligation from that time. So I've seen situations where um, the minors are now adults, but the mothers are whomever had primary care and control of the child, still take the matter to court for disobedience and maintenance. You're entitled to that money because it would mean that you would have had to find other ways, borrow it, and other means to get the child to where the child needs to get to as an adult. Now, is it fair to you that this person got away scotch free while you were saddled with the responsibility? No. And so if you can find the order or go to court and give them a period of time in which the order was made, they would pull that file and you could still proceed with the disobedience of maintenance. I've seen it done.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Before we take our next question, I would just like to welcome all of those who have joined us since the beginning. I didn't get a chance to welcome you guys to our International Men's Day Virtual Forum. Thank you for joining us. As you know, today's session is hosted by the Legal Aids Council, and we would also like to thank our partners, PBCJ, who is broadcasting this session on their YouTube page, and it can also be seen on the Ministry of Justice's YouTube page. There is one further question from Mr. Colin Hitchman from Mr. Vassell that we're going to take. So Mr. Hitchman asks in the chat, is it a part of the man's responsibility to maintain a woman at her standard of living before marriage? I'm not sure if you would have caught all of your presentation beforehand, but could you just answer that question?
Well, the standard of living is a consideration um, that the court will take into as a factor in making the determination. And yes, if you get married to her and you have given her a certain standard of living, and now the separation has taken place, and as a result of that, her standard has now fallen, and she's incapable of taking care of certain responsibilities and providing proper sustenance for herself. Of course, the court will make an application, but it will entertain the application, sorry, but it will depend on the man's capabilities, his dependence, his ability to earn. All of these factors will be taken into consideration. But I'm not Mr. Hitchman. You would have probably missed a part of the presentation. But if she moves on, cohabits with another man, no maintenance order will be granted to her. If she marries to get married, remarries, that ends as well. There's no obligation, and this application must be made within 1 year of separation.
Okay. And in response to Mr. Cunningham's question earlier about children after the passing age of 18 being able to apply for themselves in relation to maintenance, there is currently an amendment to the Maintenance Act that is before the Senate that will actually allow children who have reached the age of majority. So once they've reached 18, but they're still younger than 23, and once it is passed into law, they will be able to apply for maintenance from their parents to allow them to continue their tertiary education based on the same means test as is customary in relation to maintenance for children and spouses.
Well, that is remarkable, and it clearly shows that the lawmakers are taking into consideration the changing of the tides, because higher education has now become somewhat of a societal norm, where it is almost natural now for a child to embark upon continuing education, as opposed to in the past where the highest most people stop was high school. Most people are going to college now. So I think
Yes,
the lawmakers must be applauded for that initiative because it is necessary.
yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Vassler. Your presentation has definitely been informative, and I'm sure that the men as well as the women in the audience greatly appreciated it.
You are most
Okay.
welcome, and I wish everybody a pleasant evening, continued pleasant evening. Might
Okay,
I exit,
thank you.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, you may.
Grateful. Good evening, everybody.
So at this moment, I'd like to thank the Legal Aid Council and just give a brief expose on the Legal Aid Council and what it is that they do. So the Legal Aid Council is an arm of the Ministry of Justice, and its mandate is to administer effective legal aid system in Jamaica. So it provides assistance, legal assistance in criminal matters to persons who are of small or moderate means. The council has over 800 empaneled lawyers who works with them to assist persons who are most in need and can't afford legal assistance. So, there are various channels by which persons can reach out to the Legal Aid Council. Their contact information can be found on the Ministry of Justice's website. Okay. At this juncture, we will hear from Mr. Samuel Barton, who will share, so before we move on to our third speaker, that is, so we're going to be hearing from Mr. Samuel Barton, who will share a success story to encourage men that are joining here today. So Mr. Barton, are you ready to go ahead?
Yes, good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, Mr. Barton, I'm turning over the floor to you.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Samuel Barton. Just here, basically, International Men's Day, to share my story. It's something that I thought that was I thought it was my story. So I never really thought that it was something motivational or, something that would impact persons whom I would convey this type of message to in the way that it did. So it really surprised me when Miss Phoenix and the other ladies that I spoke with, that I shared it with initially, it made such an impact to where they asked me to, share the word with you guys today, and hopefully it can reach somebody in the way that it did reach them. So basically, under the theme, it's International Men's Day, Men's Right in Family Law. So I'm going to start from the beginning, how I grew up. I grew up in Portland up to the age of 8. I lived in a typical family, My dad was the breadwinner primarily. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She usually did like the stuff around the house and such. And my father was the primary breadwinner. And a very an extremely competent one at that, because he provided for my mom, his dad, and my older sisters at the time. What happened, however, is after my father's passing at age 8, things kind of took a turn for the worse, I would say. And what happened is that it was then left upon my mom alone as a single mother to then raise her 3 kids at that point, and take care of the house and stuff. But she wasn't really qualified in such a way as she didn't really have the education level to pursue gainful employment, so she had to take like odd jobs here and there to make things kind of work for us and our siblings. So what happened is that I used to go to school, like I find myself going to school like 2-3 days out of the week. Back in Portland where I lived, I was at this point in my life where basically I just resigned myself to working and making enough money so that I could buy a bicycle and ride to work daily, because that's what I saw around me. Every day I would see somebody, they can ride a bicycle here. I was used to seeing successful men nor women around me. So I didn't really know what that looked like at the time. So, that was my goal. I wanted to, and this is what I'm talking about. This is success in my brain at that point, because how I grew up, it was very rough. So my goal at that point was just to get a bicycle so I could, ride to work, and I didn't have to pay the taxi fare that I used to find, burdensome at that point. So I saved up some money, worked very hard, and I bought this bicycle. And after a few months of riding to work, I decided to take an alternate route one day. And while I was on that route, it's like something said to me, look left. And I looked over my shoulder and looked up, and I saw a sign that says Heart Trust NTA. But I didn't know what that was. So I was asking some people, what is this heart thing that I'm hearing about? And they said, well, basically heart is this institution that would pay you to study, pay you to learn. And remember, my situation is that, I'm missing school so often. I know for a fact that my mom was not going to be able to send me to college. And I wanted to go to college because I know that there must be better than what I was seeing around me on a daily basis. And I said, all right, cool. They would pay you to learn a skill. And it just didn't make any sense to me. So I called them and I verified and I applied and they called me and I got through. And it was so fortunate because while I was attending Stony Hill Heart Academy, that is really where I started to see persons who are successful in their fields and who I could model, have as a tangible role model that I would see on a daily basis and know that, hey, this is possible because you're seeing it right in front of you. And that exposure, it came at a pivotal moment in my life as well, because Stony Hill Heart Academy, they have this program that every summer they send you on this work experience project. And it usually lasts for about 2 to 3 months. You go to an institution of your choice in the private sector. And, you get some experience, some real life work experience. You can add onto what you're learning, theoretical stuff from Stony Hill. You can add on to that with practical experience from the work-life balance. So I did 2 courses at Stony Hill. The first course I went to the job experience. I did pretty well. And I moved on to level 3, which is the second course. And when I called my place of it, the place that I went first, they said, Samuel, we would really love to take you. But unfortunately, the budget is not there. And, when I heard that, it kind of broke my heart because, I saw that as an opportunity in my mind. If I could get a job here, maybe that would be able to put me in a position to where I can then pay for college and, send myself through school to where I can then at least have some sort of educational foundation that would send me forward. And when I called and Zoe, she was a member services and marketing manager at the time. She said, Sammy, would love to have you, but the budget is not there. But my thing is that I wasn't in it for the pay, because sometimes when an opportunity is there, you just have to take it in whatever form it comes. And because I know the situation that I'm coming from, I said, look, so I will do it for free. I will do it for free. So the money is not the influence on me. And I said, I'll start. Regardless of what I get paid, I'll still be there. So I went there for 2-3 months. I was doing all this work. I was getting no money. I wasn't getting paid. So I did so well that at the end of that 2-month period, Zoe said to me, Sam, I'm going to try to get you on a contract. And I got the contract, and I was so overjoyed because, this is a big opportunity for me now, because at least I'll be then getting in some money to where I can send myself to college. This is the next step of this is how my plan would progress. I can send myself to college. And I got the contract, and like the month that I got my contract, you're going to start working now, finish level 3. And I got the contract on January 2014, November, of 2013. My mom passed away, so she never got to see any of the fruits from her hard work, trying to push me through school or motivating me or anything like that. So that kind of broke my heart. It set me back a bit, but still, I pushed myself through, and I started university in 2017. But I had this thing where I wanted to go to UWI. But as you know, going to high school, I could barely attend to go to classes on a daily basis, much less to go to the advanced proficiency courses that you would need to then matriculate into UWI. So what I did was apply for UTech and then transferred my credits 1 year into UTech to UWI, and then gained acceptance there. But the 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 lessons that I've learned from that journey is that we as men really need role models, because all it really took for me was to see and acquaint with persons who are actually successful in their life and know that it's possible. Because I feel like it's just funny, maybe if I didn't buy that bicycle, I would probably still be in Portland now. We if I never checked out that Hard Trust NTA, if I said, all right, Zoe, since as you guys don't have the budget now, I can't work with you this summer, I may not be where I am today. And I think those are valuable lessons that we should probably take from what I've said so far. And sometimes you have to push through adversity, because I recently graduated with honors in one of the more difficult fields at the university at the West Indies. And that's something that I'm really proud of. I'm the first person in my family to have ever received any sort of tertiary level education. And that's something that I'm really proud of. One of the main reasons that I even chose to graduate recently was because I wanted to make sure that my nieces and nephews see that symbolism through the pictures that they give you. They can look at it and know and see it as something tangible that would let them know that, look, regardless of where you are now, you can still push through and actually achieve something greater in life. So that's one of my main drivers now, is to ensure that my the persons who come after me, my younger sisters, my nieces, my nephews, I want to make sure that they know also that, look, there is a possibility for you to advance yourself down the line. You just have to work hard, have a plan. Because I didn't have that. The only thing I had was determination and a dream that, look, if these persons can do it, then there must be a tangible way. And that is all because, there came into my life some positive role models who I could look up to. If you were to see the person who I was in 2009, 2010, and the person who I am now, you would never in a million years be able to say this person will one day matriculate into that person. It was just totally like night and day. The outlook that I have today is not something that I even knew existed back in 2009. And that's all through the relationships that I've built over the years, and the influences that I've gotten from the persons around me. So there is hope. I just wanted to say this to the gentlemen who are watching. If you're hearing this, there is hope out there, and it's very important. Education is one of the only things that can take you to the next level in life. You have to invest in yourself, find the motivation, and that is all you need. There will be a way if you have the motivation. So I just wanted to share that short story with you guys, and thank you for having me, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope you can take the messages, the lessons that I intended to share from this story.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barton. I have to say that was a truly inspirational story. And at the crux of it, what I really, really commend to everyone is your respect for the role models that you were able to see when it is that you went to Hard Trust NTA, and that you learning from them are now trying to be that role model for your nieces and your nephews and for the persons who come after you. And it is something that I would commend to all men, especially because it is very important for men to have male role models to look up to, that we do this not just for ourselves, but for the young men after us, so that they can have someone to look up to and someone that they can want to emulate, someone that they can want to be like, somebody who can show them that there is hope and that they can become a great man as well. Really, really inspiring, Mr. Barton. And thank you very much for spending the time to share that. So at this juncture, I see a question in the chat from Mr. Leroy James in relation to the services offered by the Legal Aid Council. He asked if it is that persons who, as I had mentioned earlier, legal aid is offered primarily for criminal matters currently. And he asked if persons who are involved in dealing with illegal drugs, scamming, extortion, and fraud are regarded as persons of moderate means and they're eligible for legal aid. What we will say is that legal aid, the means test, it takes everything into consideration, the financial means of a person. So if it is that somebody can afford an attorney, they will not be eligible for legal aid. Legal aid is for persons who cannot afford it. It is the state trying to provide and to stop that gap and to ensure that everybody has legal representation. So persons who can afford an attorney will get their own private, will have to seek their own private counsel. Thanks again for sharing, Mr. Barton. And we are now going to move on to our third speaker, Mr. Anthony Williams, who is a senior attorney at law, and he is going to be presenting to us on custody and matrimonial property. Mr. Williams, are you ready to take over?
Yes, thank you very much. And may I also say thanks to the Ministry of Justice as well as the Legal Aid Council of Jamaica for inviting me to share in this special moment. It's International Men's Day, and we have to big up all the men. So I want to big up all the men, and we have to big up some of the ladies who are acting as fathers in their own rights. It was trying to remember the name of the author who wrote the book. It was My Mother Who Fathered Me. So we have several women who are like that, but big up to all the men. So I want to talk to today on some very fundamental issues dealing with the right to property. Now, I want to say to all the men that, and just like women, but men also have the right to own property. You can own property in your own name. You can own property jointly, that is with someone else. Could be two persons. It could also be with three persons. But whether it is two or three, then it is important that you characterize and classify the type of ownership. Is it joint ownership as joint tenants? Is it by way of tenancy in common? And if it is tenancy in common, then you also have the right to state what is the shares that you own the property. Is it 50-50? Is it 2/3, 1/3? Is it 25%, 75%? It's a matter for you to discuss. So I just want all the men to know that they have the right to own property. Not only do they have the right to own property, but they also have the right to dispose of their property. And dispose mean to sell, and of course, if it is with a joint owner, then you should have the consent of that person. So you do have the right to dispose of your property. Now, one of the fundamental issues that is creating problems in the court has to do with ownership. So you have men and women, husband and wife, common law, husband and common law wife, they're in a relationship, and there is no discussion as to who owned the property. And oftentimes you have the man's name on the property, and sometimes you only have the woman's name on the property. I'm saying the time has come, gentlemen. And remember, we're focusing on the men. Oftentimes, a lot of what I say apply to the women, but since today is International Men's Day, we're going to focus on the men. So, gentlemen, if you're going to purchase property jointly with someone, whether it be your wife by way of a valid marriage, or a common law wife, or maybe your child or children, or whoever, a relative, a friend, please ensure that your name is endorsed on the title. Too many times the names are not endorsed on the title. Because it's not endorsed on the title, then there are issues as to ownership, and you want to get rid of that. There are some principles in trust law called express trust, implied trust, constructive trust. You have all sort of trusts, and you don't want to be involved in this trust situation, because it means that you'd have to go to court to resolve it. Going to court will take up a lot of time. Legal fees are expensive. Also, people do not have their documentations together. A lot of things can happen. Hurricane, flood, fire, documents are destroyed. People migrate from one parish to another or from one country to another. They don't have their documentation, and so they can't support the case. So I just want the men to understand that whenever you're going to purchase property, make sure that there's a clear understanding as to ownership, and make sure that your name is on the title. Now, there is an act called the Property Rights of Spouses Act. And in that act, it allows for parties to enter into what is called a prenuptial agreement. Now, it is very important I mention about the prenuptial agreement, because what prenuptial agreement simply means that if you intend to marry someone, and especially if you own property, you already own property, you may want to sit down with that person that is your prospective wife to be, and you outline all the arrangements. So you may have 2 houses, 3 apartments, 2 cars, whatever the case may be, money's in the bank, and you sit down, you enter into that agreement called a prenuptial agreement. It's now lawful in Jamaica, and you set out the arrangements. And when you set out the arrangements, you're actually agreeing as to how your assets should be owned. And so you make it very clear to your spouse that this is what you own, and when you get married, the marriage will not change your right of ownership. So if you had 2 houses before, or 3, and it is in your name alone, or your name and your children's name, or a child's name, or a previous wife's name who has become deceased or divorced, then you can enter into that prenuptial agreement to make it very clear. Now, I call this the Beanie Man agreement, because you remember that Beanie Man had a issue some time ago as to who owned what. The marriage never lasted long with his former lover and wife, and there were issues as to who owned what. So, gentlemen, just remember that you can enter into a prenuptial agreement. There's also insurance policies that persons, men I'm referring to, would have taken out at the various insurance companies. And so you also have the right to change your beneficiary. That is on the presumption and the premise that you sign that insurance policy, and the person who you name as your beneficiary is a revocable clause. In other words, you have an irrevocable clause and you have a revocable clause. So if you name your wife or your child or your girlfriend or common law wife, or anyone, could be a brother, as a beneficiary, make sure that you are careful in selecting the revocation. So you have revocable that you can change, you have irrevocable you can't change. And so you have to be careful. You may want to opt for revocable, so that you can change. You have the right to go into that insurance company and say, look here, I had A and B as my beneficiary. I want to change and put C and D, because circumstances change, people change as well. Okay. Now I want to get to the question of custody. Now, under section 7, I believe, of the custody, the children, guardian, and Custody Act. Both mother and father has the right to apply to the court for custody. A lot of men feel that they don't have the right to apply to the court for custody, but the act does give you that right. Section 7 of the act give every mother and every father the right to apply to the court. Now, I have had consultations with a lot of clients, male clients. And one of the things they tell you, they say, oh, Mr. Williams, we have more female judges than male judges, and most of these female judges are mothers for either one child or more than one child. And they say, boy, not making any sense, because, the judge is going to swing the thing for the mother. And I want to say to all men, no, that's not so. We have judges who are fair, well-balanced, erudite, rational in their thinking. And so we want to say to you, and I say so now, that pursuant to Section 7, you have the right to apply to the court for custody of your child. And what the court will take into consideration is in the best interest of the child. Okay? And the court takes into account a number of factors. And the two critical factors the court takes into consideration is, one, what is in the best interest of the child. Not the best interest of the mother, and not the best interest of the father, but in the best interest of the child. And the second thing the court takes into account is the conduct. The conduct. So many times court have awarded custody of children to mothers of the woman because of the conduct of the father, and they have awarded custody of children to the father because of the conduct of the mother. I've done cases where the mother have behaved so bad, their conduct is so reprehensible, so bad that the court says no. There's a particular case where the mother was an alcoholic. She became a drug abuser and so forth, and there is no way the court is going to give that. I want to also say to the men that sometimes they are in previous relationships, or they are having another relationship, not the right thing to do. And so they may have a child or children from a previous union, and the current situation is so bad that they are being harassed. There is an act called the Domestic Violence Act. And so under that act, pursuant to sections 3 and 4, this is applicable to women, but again, International Men's Day, so we're focusing on the men. You can apply to the court for what is called a protection order. You can also apply to the court for what is called an occupation order. So let us deal with the protection order. And the protection order has to do with harassment. So you can ask the court for an order that your spouse, or the respondent, in that case the woman, who is harassing you, that they should stop harassing you. You can ask the court for an order that in case they are following you or waylating you on some street or avenue, or visiting your place of work, or making frequent telephone calls, or you may be engaged or enrolled at a particular tertiary institution, whether UE, Mike, or UTEC, or any other institution, and so they come to your place of work, they complain to the supervisor and the boss and the manager just to harass you and to embarrass you. You have the right under section 3 and 4 to apply to the court for a protection order, also an occupation order as well. Just in case you don't know, we have women who lock out men, and we have men who lock out women out of the house. So we have some roughneck women. And when I say roughneck, I don't mean that they are crude. I'm just saying that they are just very firm and stern. And so they are very decisive in their action in locking out a man, especially when they're the one who pay the mortgage, they're the one who pay the rent, they're the one who's the breadwinner, and you're locked out. Well, you can apply to the court for an occupational order that you should remain in the house. Now, one of the things I also want to talk about is the whole question of family planning. We have a lot of men who are just not maintaining their children. And yesterday is International Men's Day, and we have a lot of men's rights. But I want to say to all the men who are doing the right thing in maintaining their child or children, big up and continue to do so. Some believe that because they have moved on to another relationship. They're now in another relationship. And so they have obviated the need to maintain their child or children from a former union, and only focusing on the child with the current union. And I'm saying, no, man, we have to maintain our children, right? Now, men also have the right to have access to their children or child. So to the ladies who are on the platform, despite the fact that you may have moved on to another relationship, please do not use that as a tool to punish the, the the father of your child. He will always remain the father of your child, despite there are many situations, many that I can think of, where persons have moved on, but they continue to have a good communication role and strategy, and they communicate fairly okay. They're not in love, they don't love each other anymore, but there's a child. So we're asking the men not to use it as a penalty if they have moved on, and we're asking the women not to use it as a penalty in relation to the men, to punish them so they can't see their child or children. Men, you also have the right not to be characterized as being the father of a child by jacket. And so there have been cases where women put the name of a man on the birth certificate of the child and said, that is the father. You can do DNA tests, you can go to the court, you can ask the court for an order on the Supreme Court Judicature Act and also the Custody Act as well, for DNA to verify whether or not you are the father of that child. So very critical, very important. You do have that right. The final thing I want to speak about is in relation to inheritance. Every father, every man and woman as well, has the right to make their wills. I'm encouraging all the men to think very carefully and plan for their children and their family. By that I mean, try and make your will as soon as you can. Some people make their wills when they're on their deathbed. It's not the best time to make the will. That's the time to give your opponents and other persons, especially your adversaries, the right to contest your will and be successful. So I refer to Genesis 27, verse 2 to 4, where Isaac said to Esau, he said to Esau, I do not know the hour of my departure, but I know that I will soon die. He said, come and make me some savory meat so that I will eat and I will bless you before I die. And I want to focus on the words, I want to bless you before I die. That is what Isaac said to Esau. And to the men on the platform, do what you can so that you can bless your family before you die. And why do I say that? Because we have an act called the Inheritance Act. And pursuant to Section 6 of the Act and Section 7, the court can make an order for reasonable financial provision for your dependents, including your spouse, child, or children who did not receive any reasonable financial provision. So the point I'm trying to make is when you do make your wills, then make sure that you give reasonable financial provision to those who you want to benefit. You're under no obligation to give any specific person. No obligation at all. You have testamentary freedom. However, there are some persons that the law is not going to overlook. Certain child, children, spouse, current spouse, former spouse, etc. So please, gentlemen, do all you can to make sure that there's proper estate planning. And that is essentially what I want to say in a nutshell in relation to men's rights, in relation to custody and maintenance. And also, when the court has made an order for custody and maintenance or access, don't think that that is it. Circumstances may change. You you can apply to the court as well to vary the order. Vary means to change the order. Suppose, for example, you were working and you had a pretty good job, and then COVID comes in, maybe you're sick, you have an incapacitation, some medical or whatever condition that has slowed you up or has reduced your income. You can go to the court. You have the right to go to the court and ask the court for a variation of that order. Section 7 of the Custody Act allows you that right, as well as the court can discharge the order, meaning set it aside. So these are some of the rights, lots more, but these are some of the things that we would like to share.
Thank you very much for that very informative presentation, Council Williams. And I would like to invite questions for Mr. Williams from the chat. So if you would like to ask him a question, I'm asking that you raise your hand. However, there was one question that was posed under our live stream on YouTube by Mr. Patrick Hilton. So he stated, how do I get my name, or he asked rather, how do I get my name on my daughter's birth certificate? Her mother took her and says she wants the child to have her name and she wants to carry on her name. So he's asking how he can get his name on his daughter's birth certificate.
Well, I'm very happy that that question is asked because so many birth certificates have been issued and the incorrect name of the father is placed. Either incorrect name or deliberate incorrect name is placed on the child's birth certificate. So my simple answer is that you go to the Registrar General's Department in Twickenham Park, Spanish Town. There's also one on Duke Street. And I believe there are others in other parishes where you can go, tell them the situation. They will give you the relevant form and the relevant criteria for you to comply with. Once you have complied and the registrar is satisfied, then they will make the changes. There have been many instances where incorrect spelling or false names or substituted names. There have been women who have some very difficult circumstances. You know, the time prior to pregnancy, they were okay. The moment they got pregnant, sometimes the relationship between themselves and the father to be get very sour. Some have been beaten very, very seriously. And when I say beaten, I mean by the potential father or father to be. And so they get very angry. They get very caustic, waspy, and all sort of nice adjectives. And so they decide to punish the man. And I've done a lot of those cases. They decide to punish the man. And so they put another man's name on the birth certificate, right? But it poses a challenge for the child. And we're asking women to think seriously about the long-term effects, because it's going to affect the child in getting into school, if possible visa applications, possible going to tertiary institutions, or even a passport, you know? So we just need to be careful, but they can just go to the RGD.
All right, thank you very much for that answer, Mr. Williams. Are there any further questions for Mr. Williams from the audience? You can indicate by raising your hand and I will unmute you so you can ask.
Whilst the questions are coming, I just want to remind us what Esau said, or his reaction, when he discovered that the birthright was taken from him. When the birthright was taken from him, the scripture said that Esau wept bitterly. He didn't cry, you know. Esau didn't cry, you know. In local Jamaican parlance, Miss Lou and Mars Ran and Oliver Samuels would say that Esau bawl, B-A-A-A-L-L, bawl. And I say this to say that we don't want our spouse to bawl. We don't want our child or children to bawl. And so we have to just make, reasonable provisions for them. And that is one of the role and the responsibility of every man who has a child. Too often you go to the family court and you cannot open the door of the family court. You go downtown on Duke Street, you go to St. Catherine, you go to almost every one of them. You can't open the door because there are so many women who are there claiming for maintenance. And I want to say to the men on the platform who are doing good, keep it up. And I say to the men on the platform as well, when you speak to others, let us encourage the other men, please, to step it up in relation to maintenance. There are some fathers who come to court, and if the judge says, and they quarrel, they don't even want to give $1 more, because the judge says he must give $5. And when the mother comes to the child for the money, they say, no, the judge says I must give you $5. Says $5 I'm giving you. All right. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. So there's one further question that I'll take. It's also in relation to the birth certificate issue. Mr. Shabar Cunningham asked, what preventative measures can we take to mitigate the issue of the incorrect name on the birth certificate? So you already gave a response in relation to what
one of the other preventative measures is, and I'm going to say to men, please, be straight up, with our women. Women don't like when men samfire them, and equally men don't like when women samfire them. Okay? So we want to be straight up. And one of the preventative measures is just to be as, straight up, loyal. Let the woman know that, well, you are the father, But as well, another preventative measures is just our women as well being faithful too, because they have sex with a man, and that man believed that he was the father, but between period A and B, when she had sex with that man, she also had sex with another man, and so there's an issue and doubt as to who really is the father. So it's not only the man alone, the woman has a role to play. Okay, so that is another preventative measures.
And last, I'm sorry, Mr. Cunningham, but you already used the question. We can't let you have another. We're going to just let the last question by Mr. Leroy James. I'm going to ask that you be brief, Mr. Williams. Just a quick explanation of the difference between joint tenancy and tenancy in common as it relates to property.
All right, very quickly. Joint tenancy is where two or more persons own property, and in the event of the death of one, it passes to the other. So, and if any one of them make a will, the will not affect ownership. Whilst tenancy in common, if one person die, there are four persons on the property, it does not automatically pass to the other. It passes to their estate. If the person made a will, they can will it. So with a joint tenancy, you cannot make a will as to who will benefit your share. With a tenancy in common, you can make a will because the property passes to your estate. But with joint tenancy, it does not pass to your estate. It passes to the last person who owns it, who survives.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. Your presentation has been most insightful, and I'm sure the men and the audience as a whole have benefited greatly from it. So now we are at the close of our discussion. But before we go, I'd like to invite Mrs. Diane Watson, the Executive Director of the Legal Aid Council, who hosted this session, to tell us a little bit about the work of the council and how you can contact them if you are ever in need. So I'm going to turn over to Mrs. Watson.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Patterson. Happy International Men's Day to all the men on this platform. I just want to say thank you to our distinguished panelists, Mr. Danvers, or Messrs. Danvers, Vassell, and Williams, and to Mr. Barton, who shared with us. We wanted to have this event to honor our men and to empower them. And we hope to have many more sessions like these. At the council, we do provide these services where we have a wonderful mobile justice unit service, and we travel across the entire island where we give free advice and information to persons who require it. In addition to assigning attorneys in criminal matters, you heard Mr. Patterson speak about those earlier, that we do assign attorneys where persons are arrested or detained. That attorney we call a duty counsel. And we also assign attorneys when persons are charged with criminal offenses and they are eligible in that they satisfy a means test and they require legal aid. And so if you're interested in having other sessions like these, or you need to get some additional advice or information, I'd ask that you give us a call. We can be reached at 948-6999. We are located in Kingston at 6 Oxford Road. That's on the BNS building, is across from Kia Motors. We're on the 3rd floor. You can also call us on the Ministry of Justice toll-free number is 188-JUSTICE. That is 188-8423. You can also reach us on WhatsApp. We're on 505-9378. If you want to know where to find us, Mobile Justice Unit, you can go on the Ministry of Justice website. That's moj.gov.jm. And yes, thank you, Mrs. Miller. See, it's in the chat, so you can find the information in the chat. We have our Mobile Justice Unit schedule on the Ministry of Justice website, so you can find us there. You can call us at any time. We take emails at aid.legal@moj.gov. So we respond to your queries and your questions. So we do virtual consultations, and our social media pages are also posted in the chat, so you can find it there. And I thank you so much, everyone, for joining and for sharing with us on this platform. And I do wish you all a wonderful rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Watson. So that is the close for our session tonight. I do hope that everyone benefited from it. I know I did. And I would like to wish you all a good rest of the evening and a good rest of your International Men's Day. Do take care.
I'm Miss Watson. So
Yes, I'm here. Oh,
yes, so nice to see you. Long time.
that is so good seeing you too.
Yes, and congratulations on your elevation to office. Doing a good job. Keep it up.
Thank you so much. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah, we're here to support the council, so keep it up. We're here to support. Thanks again.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, my pleasure. Good, good.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah.